One of the hardest parts about reading a fantasy series that you love is having to inevitably say goodbye to your favorite characters and world. Recently, I finished the last books of 4 of my favorite fantasy series, and the empty feeling that I'm experiencing is like no other. First, we have The Lotus Empire by Tasha Suri. This is the last book in the Burning Kingdoms trilogy. I remember being so excited when this series was announced. We have a full Desi cast in this epic fantasy world. Priya and Melanie, our 2 main characters, are so iconic. The angst between them in this book was unmatched. I felt like I was feeling all the feels going through this book and experiencing this ending. And the epilogue made me bawl so hard. Next, we have An Honored Vow by Melissa Blair. This is the last book in the Halfling Saga series, which is made up of 4 books. I've talked more about this book in my 2024 wrap-up on YouTube. Watching Kira's journey throughout the series was such an unforgettable experience. This series talks a lot about war and colonization and the effects that it has on indigenous peoples and races. The sacrifices that Kira, her friends, her family have to make in order to liberate their people were truly devastating. I love the character relationships in this book, and I highly recommend this series if you love found family. Third, we have Raided the Talon by Sophie Kim. This is the last book in the Talon's trilogy, and I literally just finished this, so I'm still reeling and trying to process everything that happened. When I picked up the first book, Last of the Talon, I thought we were getting our standard knife to throw, enemies to lovers fantasy, but this series ended up going in a direction that I couldn't even fathom. Every time you think you know where the plot is taking you, Sophie Kim ends up 3 steps ahead of you. I truly think this series will devastate you in more ways than one. If you are someone who enjoys high-stake fantasy with a searing romance, I cannot recommend this enough. Lastly, we have Tale of the Heart Queen by Nisha J. Tooley. This is the 4th and final book in the Artifacts of Arano series. I'd say this book is like my comfort fantasy series. Every time I came back to these books and characters, I knew I was in for a treat. It was so much fun seeing a group of brown fae characters in an otherwise Western fantasy world. And of course, the romance is totally worth obsessing over. I could probably consume a billion more short stories of Laura Nadir and never get enough of them. If you're a romantasy lover but you're tired of the typical white book talk fantasy, I suggest checking this series out. Let me know if there's a fantasy series that you finished recently.